President Hill, go ahead and get us started.
You're muted, I guess.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. No, we can't hear you.
should I start?
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting because when Angel and I were talking before, the audio was perfect. So thank you. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. on Monday, July 18th, 2022.
I'll go ahead and call quorum. That's okay with you,
Mhm.
President Hill. Members of the commission of the authority, if you're here, please indicate so by saying aye. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Flagger. She's not here. Vice President Schmidt,
Here.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
Here.
thank you. President Hill,
Here.
thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And Angel, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And everyone, you can put yourselves on mute and speak along.
Yes.
Thank
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And are there any public comments?
Members of the public, if you would like to address the authority on items not on the agenda, now is the time. I see one hand up. Would you like to, President Hill, for me to display a timer, or would you like to just give him 3 minutes, or what would you like to do with your public comment here?
Let's give the gentleman 3 minutes.
Okay. Our speaker is Nelvin G. Nelvin, are you there?
Yes, I'm actually on the agenda, but I did not get an invitation to join other than as a public member.
Okay.
Okay, so no public comment. All right, so let me. What item are you here to support on this evening?
It is the future subcommittee for the Library Commission on redevelopment.
It's
Excellent.
item number 14.
All right, so I'm going to promote you to a panelist, and then when we get there, we'll continue the meeting at that point.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to take a look at the consent calendar. Are there any changes, or would people like to move anything to the regular calendar? Yes. Sally?
Actually, I'll let Vice President Schmidt go first because she might be going to make some of the suggested corrections that I was. If it's okay with you, Vice President, go ahead.
Oh, certainly. I only had one, and it was in the 7-7 meeting. Council was spelled with an IL, which is a little confusing because it's actually EL, and Clara is here in that capacity. So given the circumstances, I would change it to council.
Noted. Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I had noted. I also noted, actually, I thought Vice President Schmidt, you might comment on this. There was inconsistent spelling of your last name, sometimes correctly and sometimes without the D. And then I would also say that the headers on the minutes all say City Council meeting minutes. So even though this is correctly identified at the beginning of each minute as NCLA, it should also say that on the header. So that's what I wanted to mention regarding the minutes.
Thank you. That's what I get for working off templates. I will make those corrections.
Thank you to both. So Sally or Lisa, maybe you can help me. Do we do a motion on the consent calendar, or do we just accept it?
No, we can, I'll do the motion that we approve the consent calendar as amended.
Correct.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And Angel, will you take the vote, please?
I'm sorry. The second was from Ms. Schmidt. Oh,
No.
Epstein, sorry, thank you. Okay, if you agree to adopt the motion on the floor, which is the minutes as amended, please indicate so by saying aye. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. Vice President Schmidt,
Aye.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
Aye.
thank you. President Hill,
Aye.
thank you all. Motion passes. 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, the audit contract award. Commissioner or Secretary Epstein, would you like to introduce this topic?
Yes. So Cindy and I were on, I don't know whether it was ad hoc committee or what was it called,
Right.
to find an auditor. And so I went through a selection process doing this. It was more a learning process on my part since this was something just thrown in my lap. I first started with looking at small audit firms, and after speaking with the first one, I discovered that we actually need someone who has dealt with government agencies. So I took another approach and went through the county investment fund, looking at auditors who were currently doing audits for some of the companies that had invested there. I wanted to have that experience of working with them. So I basically had several criteria I used. One that they did work for government agencies. That was number one. And then they had experience working with the staff at the county investment fund, that they were willing to work with small government agencies such as ourselves, that they were accepting new clients. And I had my own personal extra criteria of that they were a local firm. So the firm that is here to present tonight, it meets all those. And I did speak to some references. They had things that were like very competitive pricing, extremely responsive, provides more personal service than previous auditor, attend meetings and answers questions, quote, best audit firm they've had in 36 years. So I want to present Sheldon Chauvin from Chauvin and Associates right now to present his firm. And we do have attached to the agenda, in the agenda packet, is the contract and the proposal. Okay, Sheldon.
Hello, good evening. And I'm going to have to look those references up and remember to call each and every one of them to say thank you. Yeah, I always tell people that if you look at a proposal for my firm, you can actually look past the references. Take a look at the client list, call anybody you want. You'll probably get similar comments from every single one of them. We strive to go above and beyond. We're what's called a boutique audit firm. We're probably one of the last left out there. There's probably a handful of us still. And so we take pride in those comments. So I do appreciate the fact that we were referred to and we had good comments once again. So just to give you a quick little background on my firm, I started Chauvin Associates in 2009. I was a partner at another firm in 2006 through 2009. I was the 5th partner out of 5. Didn't like being the bottom guy on the totem pole, so I decided to start my own firm. Negotiated a handful of clients, and out of my garage, I started with 9 school districts. And my wife was my administrative partner and still is. And today we have about 200 different audit clients and 15 employees. And I have another partner, Paul Pham, and a reviewing partner, Jeff Ira. Jeff brings to the table 40 years of audit experience. And mind you, this is all local government audits, single audits. So if you hit the $750,000 threshold, which the NCLA probably will not do that anytime soon, but you never know in today's environment. You're required to undergo an audit via uniform guidance. And then also there's a mix of nonprofits and privately held companies in there as well. My partner, Paul Pham, brings 14 years of experience to the table, local government audits and nonprofits, his specialty. And of course, I bring my 24 years of experience to the table. And my focus has been local governments and nonprofits as well, although I have had a good mix of high-tech companies in there. and oversees subrecipients, parent relationships, things of that nature as well. So pretty well-rounded when it comes to the type of entities. We also provide bookkeeping services for different local governments. City of Lincoln, it's higher end bookkeeping. We help them close their books to make sure they're going to pass their audits. That's what we do. And so City of Lincoln, Mid-Peninsula Water District, Westboro Water District, and Parisma Hills Water Districts are some examples of those clients that we provide bookkeeping services for. And in addition to that, in 2020, I went out and bought a tax firm. I decided I was getting not enough work, getting bored. So we actually have a tax firm out of Morgan Hill where we focus on high net worth individuals and companies, entities. So we've got about 350 or so clients in the tax firm that my tax director, Louis, runs. And so between the two firms, we keep ourselves rather busy. And in today's environment, as you well know, with coronavirus, CPA firms are really in high demand. Not so much supply. There's not a whole lot of us out there anymore, especially in local government audits. We are in very much high demand. So with that, I'll leave it open to any questions or comments you might have. And I was very glad to be able to provide a bid for the NCLA.
Does anyone have any questions from the contract, from?
I must admit, I was very impressed with your client list. I don't have any experience in audits or taxes, but I thought you put together a very nice proposal, and it was very nice to see so many similar groups using your services. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say a similar thing. I appreciated the thorough description and proposal. So thank you for that. I have no questions. It was very well done.
And Suzanne, I'm going to echo all of that. Since you and I spoke prior to this meeting and then rereading the proposal, it is thorough. I feel comfortable with what has been presented to us. And with what I know about firms like this, I think you did an excellent job finding a boutique organization that can most likely meet our needs. So I would just ask if you have any questions for us, the owner of your business. Is there something that you'd like to know more about NCLA before you step into this, if we choose you?
Suzanne actually did a great job of answering all our questions in the interview process. So
Yeah.
we know exactly what we're getting into.
All right.
The only thing I will say is that the timeline in the proposal is probably going to get shifted just a bit because of the timing of the contract.
Yeah.
So we'll work that out though as we move forward. We'll still try to get the report done before the end of the year though.
Yeah, so Sheldon, you probably need, you can do a lot of stuff with the information from this past year, and we have that for you. But you probably will need the fiscal year 21 audit done as your starting basis. And so that we actually haven't had finalized, and hopefully we'll have maybe in August, I think was the latest I had heard. I don't know if Sally knows anything different about that on timing. No, okay. So if we're the cause of the delay, then you're free with the delay.
Yeah, the one thing, the one thing to keep in mind too is, being a smaller firm, it's funny when I say I'm a small firm when, we're so many thousands of percent larger than we were when I started, but we are a small firm. But the idea is that when we do have delays, it's more impactful to us. And so when we start to get into our busy season, if that audit isn't done in the middle of August, it could push you guys into January or February for a final audit report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understood. And I just wanted you to know that.
I appreciate that. And also, we can actually get started on the audit process because, if we were doing the prior year audit, we wouldn't be able to get started because of independent standards and billings and things of that nature. But because it's another audit firm, we can go ahead and get started on the planning and the documentation with control processes and that stuff. And you guys are small, so there's not a whole lot there. But yeah, we can get going on some things. We just won't be able to do the testing of your balances, what we call substantive testing.
Right, exactly. No, and that's very true. You can get pretty much after we give you the stuff, everything ready from the 2022 fiscal year, but
And we can get you the list of items out right away, because that's going to be important for you to see and get used to that and become more exposed to it. So
Okay.
understanding what we're going to look for.
okay, yeah, great. And as I explained before, generally, our January meeting is when we receive and look at least the preliminary audit, if not the final audit. So sounds like we're still on for that possibly.
Yeah, if we're able to get the final audit from the last fiscal year in the middle of August, I would say yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we're actually very simple. I think when you
No, I remember.
get into it, well, it'd be even
Yeah.
simpler than you think.
Yeah, I'm looking at the total budget on the hours, and this is a pretty straightforward audit. The one thing that has changed over the years, back in the day, I would do an audit like this myself in 16 to 20 hours, right, in and out. But by today's standards, the documentation requirements, no matter what size an audit is, have completely changed. So it takes us a week just to get the supporting work papers up to speed. No matter what size the audit is. So
I know. It's
there you go.
So Commissioner Epstein, would you like to make a motion?
well, so if everyone's comfortable with having a motion while Sheldon's still standing here, then I will make a motion that we accept the proposal and to use Chauvin and Associates as our auditor for the next 3 years. It's a 3-year proposal. It's at a set rate, same rate each year. So yeah, I'm moved to do that.
All right, and is there a second? Sally, okay, Commissioner Meadows has seconded.
Yep.
Thank you. Angel, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, if you agree with the motion on the table, please indicate so by saying aye. Vice President Smith,
Aye.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. President Hill,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 absent.
So Sheldon,
right,
thank
thank
you
you,
very
everyone.
much.
Appreciate it. Look forward to working with you.
All right,
Yeah.
enjoy your evening.
Sheldon, in the agenda packet, you'll see the audit from fiscal year 20, and and also down in the information items, you'll see sort of a preliminary statement. It's under item number 17, Santa Clara County Investment Fund, but there's a preliminary kind of fund balance statement for the firm. You can.
Perfect. We'll grab the packet and I'll share that with my partner. and We'll get started.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right.
very much for being here.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you to the subcommittee for doing all the work on this.
So I also want to voice that because Commissioner Epstein did all of the work and really did an excellent, superb job. Her detective work is wonderful, her interviewing skills and just pulling out all the things. And then of course, presenting it to us. So thank you, Suzanne. Really appreciate this. Yay. Such a nice step forward.
Okay.
So let's move on to item number 7, consider and adopt the NCLA fiscal year 2019-20 audit. So Suzanne, is there anything you'd like to talk about on this one?
Point of
Oh,
order,
Sally.
sorry, President
Sorry.
Hill, I just realized on that last agenda item and it's, we didn't take public comment.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I will remember. And Angel, will you check with the public to see if there are any public comments?
Yes, if you'd like to make a public comment on the item that just passed, that would be item 6. Please indicate so by raising your hand. Looks like we have no public comment.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Meadows. So let's move on to number 7, consider and adopt the NCLA fiscal year 2019-20 audit. Secretary Epstein.
Yeah, so they picked up most of our changes. There's one item that they didn't pick up. It's just again an arithmetic error. And so that item is on page 4 of their audit, their page 4. And it is under financial highlights. It's the second comment. And it talks about the total liabilities decreased by $302,359. The correct number, based on their own figures right below that, is $302,426. So with that change, I move to approve the audit if, unless there's other comments.
Excuse me, Suzanne, you, Commissioner Epstein, you're saying that where they claim $302,000, it's really 315 below? Is it that?
Okay, so do you see page 4? Are you on page 4? Okay, so the second bullet item under financial highlights, where it says total liabilities decrease. If you subtract below that, if you look in their chart below that, total liabilities, if you take the 315,845 and you subtract the 13,419, you get 302,426. So the number in that statement should be 302,426.
Replacing the 315,000 they have listed there.
No, there isn't. Where do you see 315,000? No, it's not replacing that. It's in the bullet item where it says 302,359. That it replaces that. So it's 302,426. Just to be consistent with their own chart.
So the chart is correct. It's the bullet
Yes,
point.
right.
Error. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching that change. Are there any comments from the commission or questions? All right, Angel, will you see if there are any public comments?
Yes, if you'd like to make a comment on the audit item number 7 as presented on the packet, please indicate so by raising your hand. President Hill, I see no request to make a comment.
Thank you. So is excuse me, Commissioner Epstein, would you like to make a motion?
I think I did make a motion,
Okay.
but I'll make it again.
No, I just want to make sure. And did somebody second it?
I did not hear a second.
Okay,
Mr. Schmidt, I'm happy to second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All right, Angel, will you please take the roll?
Yes, if you're in favor of adopting the 1920 audit as amended by Secretary Epstein, please indicate so by answering in the affirmative. Secretary Epstein?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Thank you. Vice President Smith?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. President Hill?
Aye.
Thank you. Item passes 4 in favor, 1 absent.
And
All
that
right.
was with the amendment. That was
With
the change.
With
Yeah.
the amendment correction, yeah, so I will, I'll send this soundbite over to, as amended, sorry, that's what I should have said. The soundbite will go over to Mays and Associates so they can update these numbers.
Great.
All right, moving on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is to consider and adopt the NCLA annual budget fiscal year 2022, 2023. So Commissioner Epstein, would you like to introduce this one?
Okay, but then I'm gonna let Chuck talk. So
Is
what?
Chuck here?
Yes.
Oh, great.
So attached to the budget or following the in your attachment, just following the budget, are the 2 budget request forms from the Santa Clara County Library District. One is an amended form for last year to actual, and then the new one is the one for this year. So the gist of it is that We have a lot of credits from both ERAF, from government credits, and from our own credits from not having the library open. And so it's, even though the staffing needs for the extra hours continue to increase each year, with all of our credits, the final request for next year was $15,000. And Chuck believes that actually won't even occur because of additional adjustments to the formula from the increased taxes that will be received because the property taxes have gone up. But Chuck, if you'd like to talk about that, and then then I can come back to answer any questions on the other costs on here. If you want to first talk about this county staffing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my video isn't working on this laptop for some reason.
Okay.
But I guess you could hear me okay. But yeah, Suzanne, on the head, credit from prior years. We're not fully open, not open a part of the year, not fully open for the rest of it.
Chuck, we're having difficulty hearing you for some reason.
Okay, I'm gonna get a little closer.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
better.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, as Suzanne mentioned, credits were applied from our limited opening during COVID, and the excess ERAF, which is additional property tax, getting every year. We are admonished from relying on it heavily every year because we think, or the county seems to think, it might go away anytime based on state legislative action, but so far so good. In any case, what this means is we were able to fund all the additional hours within our existing budget for this year and for the next fiscal year. As Suzanne mentioned, the net to NCLA would be $15,247, but that will vanish. I'm 100% certain that will vanish. So there will be no charge for the year that just passed and this coming year, or the present year that we're in 22-23. Feeling pretty confident that that will continue at least into 23-24, if not beyond, just the way our property tax and the excess ERAF continues to come in.
Good. Were there anyone want to have any questions with Chuck? Okay, so the next thing on our budget are the administrative costs. So I have $26,000 for administrative costs, and that the NBS. Does everyone understand who NBS is? NBS is the one who notifies the county each year as to which parcels to tax for our parcel tax. So you'll see one of the information items attached to this agenda packet is their report to us, as well as showing the changes from the prior year and an explanation of those changes. So NBS charges us, so this past year, it was just under $7,000. They have a cost of living increase, and since we're in this inflationary period, I put $7,500 in here for next year. The financial audit we just approved was a set rate is $8,500. And then for legal support, usually here at NCLA, we usually only have a few $1,000s of legal costs each year. We usually do not have a lawyer attending our meetings. We have, in the past, we've used, it's been the city lawyer up until the last several years. But prior to that, it was the city lawyer. And if we had a legal question, he or she would come in for our meeting and charge us for that hour or whatever time was spent to address our legal question. We don't have that many legal questions. So anyway, usually the annual cost of legal is $2,000 to $3,000. I put in $10,000 this year just based on the fact that this past year it's been over $8,000 with the new group we've hired. And part of it is because they're attending our meetings, and that's a cost. So unless we really have a need or a reason, we should not be having that happen. So that's where that figure comes in, 26,000. The revenues are set, and again, that's on the NBS report. They'll tell you exactly how many parcels. It's $76 a parcel. The county will keep 1%. So the total that's shown in NBS minus 1% is what we get. So that's our revenue. Then the difference is your operating surplus, and that adds to the fund balance from the previous year to create our current fund, to create the forecast and next fund balance. Now, everything prior to this budget that we're doing right now, if you notice on the budget report, the last 4 years have not turned into actual numbers because we were lacking financial reports. So as we get an audited financial report, we can correct that to an actual number, or at least an unofficial actual. So that fund balance is not correct. It's actually higher. Just to let you know, because once we're not, if you look at our budget for the last couple of years, we show that we're using money, but we didn't really use money for the county. So the fund balance is actually higher than what it shows on here, but it's a formula. So it just adds from what shows on the year before, adds what our operating surplus is to it, to calculate that. So that's just to explain the proposed operating budget that we have. Are the questions?
So in past years, we've used, I can't remember the name of the firm, but an administrator for this whole process, and then we went away from doing that. And is there consideration to bring back an administrator to Marcia? Marcia is the lady, I believe. I'm sorry, I don't remember her company name.
Yeah, MRG.
Okay.
So no, that was just hired by, so the city of Los Altos is supposed to provide staff. I'm sorry that Gabe is not at this meeting. In the past, prior to, when I say in the past, it's prior to the last administration. The last administration of the city manager at Los Altos flipped everything in the air. Everything changed. Prior to that, for the 35 years, the city manager would be at the meeting. The city, and in the JPA agreement, the city of Los Altos provides staff. So all of these things, like this operating budget, would have been done by the staff. All of the reports would have been done by the staff. Calling the meeting, minutes, all these things are done by the staff. So I think Cindy has a comment because she spoke with Gabe, and it looks like that's going to go back to being the case again, but I don't know how soon.
It's possible. Gabe is going to put together a proposal sometime in early August about returning some of the responsibilities to the city. But they cannot do the financial part because they don't manage our funds. And if we want to go back into the city, we can do that, and our funds would be kept completely separate. Because one thing he did say is that it's not legal to commingle funds. So it would be city funds and it would be NCLA funds, and we would have a very clear recording of all of that. So I think we need to, I will be meeting with Gabe sometime in early August, which is not that far away when I think about it, and see where he wants to go. But he did indicate that he thought that there could be more support coming from the city. He has read the original agreement more than once, and he sees where it says that, and he's trying to rectify it.
Okay, and then also, whoa, what was that?
I don't know.
That's scary. He did indicate to Cindy that just like with MRG, the city hired MRG because they didn't have enough staff, and that's how we had the outside person. Anyway, he did indicate to Cindy that we could, if we could find somebody, they would pay. The city of Los Altos would pay for it for that person. But I've talked to Marcy, And Marcy has talked to several people that she knows, but nobody is available, including Marcy, who's now working for a number of clients in Sacramento. Anyway, so
So the
so that was-
situation,
we're kind
yeah.
of side here.
yeah, the situation is very similar to what we just heard from Sheldon about the lack of firms to support organizations like ours. They are in high demand and there are just not enough of them to be able to even select from. So if we can get back working with the city, it's possible that our city manager can find a firm to work with us. But whatever it is, I think I need to have that next meeting with Gabe. And since Suzanne and I were on that task force, the special committee, maybe Suzanne and I can jointly meet with him again.
Yeah, I would like to do that. I'm not here the first week of August, but if we can do that after that, I'd like to do that, Cindy.
I guess my concern is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sally. Go ahead.
You go ahead, Lisa, and then I'll
Okay.
say what I'm going to say.
Okay, I am concerned that we don't have an organization or a person kind of pushing us along and helping us make these decisions. I think it's hard for any of us to try to do that ourselves. And I think we also don't know the ins and outs. So I would also understand if Los Altos didn't have the time to do it. So I know before there was concern that we weren't supposed to pay for this sort of services. And if that's still an issue, I would like to discuss it. If the issue is we just haven't found the person, then, if I can support finding the person, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not an issue of pay. Los Altos has offered to pay, but it's finding the person. We're
Right.
kind of unique. We're only sporadic when we meet and things. It's not like a constant, so much a month type of thing.
We're
So
sporadic,
can-
but we have a big fiduciary responsibility, and it looks like we're going to try to elaborate on that, which may be good, but I suspect that's going to make this a much more complicated process, is if we combine with other processes and look at spending money in a different way than we have. So I get concerned that we need to have more experience and oversight for doing that well.
So Commissioner Meadows?
Yeah, I was going to say, you suggested that we have the subcommittee continue, have that conversation with Gabe. I don't recall though how we define the subcommittee's responsibility, and do we actually, depending on how we defined it, do we have to add this to that scope, or is this included within the scope? But I don't have that information in front of me. I'm sure it's in some minutes somewhere, but
Yeah,
to
I'm
me,
looking right
this-
now.
yeah, it may or may not be included. And then I do agree with what Vice President Schmidt was saying as well, because we are understaffed and our, poor Angel is doing this on top of other things he wasn't doing a year ago or even 6 months ago. And so he's filling a lot of interim roles right now, but I'll leave that conversation between Gabe and whoever from the
So
authority.
Commissioner Meadows, going back to your comment, you're right that the subcommittee that we created was specifically for the audit work. So we would need to create another subcommittee in order to continue the conversation with the city manager of Los Altos.
Well, you don't necessarily need to create a new subcommittee, but we would need to agree that we want to expand the scope
Okay,
of the subcommittee. Is that consistent with how you would understand it, Vice President Schmidt, or even Ms. Lai?
From what President Hill has just said about the scope, I do think it's appropriate to add this task on top of that if the prior subcommittee was specific with respect to the audit.
all right.
Right.
Thank you.
The other way to think about it, so tell me, I may not have understood correctly what you were suggesting the subcommittee do, but basically have the conversation with Gabe about resourcing or further supporting NCLA, correct? Was that what it
Right.
is?
Yes,
I almost think that Cindy, if you have a conversation with Gabe and then he attends our next meeting, that we as an authority would be better off having the discussion as a whole rather than have the subcommittee only, but I guess I'm open either way.
I think that that would be the next step, that having Gabe create a proposal and bring it to NCLA, and then we could discuss it as a group. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I need to check in with him and see where he is. And Suzanne has indicated she'd like to be part of that conversation too. So if we were to expand the role of the subcommittee to meet with Gabe to prep him and us for his proposal, would that be appropriate? Do people agree with that next step?
Yeah.
I'm just, sorry, I'm not sure what having the subcommittee have the conversation with Gabe to bring it back to NCLA versus just you, President Hill, to have the conversation. Unless, I mean, I know Suzanne's been intimately involved with all this, so.
So Sally, I think it's because I'm really familiar with what is needed, having just done a lot of this. I think it would be good. So I think Gabe is open. I mean, I think he's totally open and willing to provide services. He doesn't have the staff right now. But it's just now that he's, I spoke with him before when he just started as a city manager and everything was, new, but now he's very understanding the situation and settled. And now sitting down and just talking about what really needs to be done for NCLA. So it's clear that it's, because I think there is some misunderstanding on his part. So I think it'll be better if we sit down first and he really understands before he comes to us.
Okay, then I would move we expand the subcommittee's remit to include discussing with Los Altos City Manager the needs for support for NCLA.
And
Just
is
to be
there
clear,
a,
that's the scope of the scope of the committee's work.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
You said
Sorry.
agreement, so I just want to make sure that
Oh, okay.
The
To
scope.
expand the scope, sorry. To include discussion with the city manager about support for the authority.
With the understanding that he will come back and meet with the entire group. I second the motion.
I
right,
accept
and-
that amendment.
thank you. And before we take a vote, I'd like to see if there are any public comments.
Members of the public, if you'd like to speak on this proposal to expand the role of this subcommittee, please indicate so by raising your hand. I see no hands raised, President Hill.
Thank you. So is there any further discussion? All right. Angel, will you please take the vote?
Yes, if you agree with the motion on the floor, please indicate so by saying aye. Vice President Schmidt,
Aye.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. And President Hill,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes with one absent, 4 in favor.
All right, I just want to go back to stay on item number 8. We have not adopted the budget at this point.
Right.
So is there any additional information we need before we consider a motion? And before I ask for a motion, I'd like to know if there are any public comments.
Any member of the public that would like to speak on the adoption of the budget, please indicate so by raising your hand. I see none, President Hill.
All right. Commissioner Meadows, did you have something comment?
Again, I'll refer to Ms. Lai. So we actually took an action on the subcommittee that wasn't agendized.
Oh,
Is that an issue?
No, because that is pertaining to essentially a line item in the budget and discussions about supporting staff and the cost of the amounts to that line item. So I think it's appropriate for the board to do that.
All right, excellent.
thank you, Commissioner Meadows. And thank you, Ms. Lai. All right, so is there a motion to approve the annual budget as presented?
I move to adopt the operating budget for fiscal year 22-23.
In a second? All right.
Second.
And Angel, will you please call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Just want to confirm my second. I thought I heard President Hill. Is that correct? I'm not.
No, Commissioner Meadows.
Thank you, Meadows. Sorry about that.
Sorry for not speaking up.
You're okay. I'm looking away from the video while I type, so that's, can't really see you guys say. Okay, well, if you agree with the adoption of the budget as presented, please indicate so by saying aye. Secretary Epstein.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice President Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Meadows.
Aye.
Thank you, President Hill.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 absent.
All right. Item number 9, adopt resolution 2023-01, the annual GAN limit resolution. This is a resolution that we review and pass every year. Typically, it had been created by the city of Los Altos, and Commissioner or Secretary Epstein has put this together with our 2 signatures on here. Is there additional information, Commissioner Epstein, that you'd like to present to us?
Well, I guess we need to correct the resolution number at the top. It's 23-01. The same thing on the next resolution is 23-02. But other than that, so the GAN, this is the appropriations limit. This is the GAN limit that every government agency by the laws of California has to produce each year. It's basically showing the limit of what we can collect. We're only collecting though the same amount pretty much each year, a little over 1 million. And this is now reaching almost 4 million that we could collect. Anyway, it's something that's required by law. So we have calculated it. It's here for us. We adopt it each year. So there really is nothing to discuss about this. Anyway.
I would have a question though, as you pointed out, the resolution number, I know the fiscal year is 23 or 22/23, but the resolution is taken in calendar year 2022. So, but maybe there's a different convention than NCLA has applied, but anything the city does would be a 2022 resolution by calendar year. And that would apply to the next item. But I don't know, it sounds like you were looking at something else, and was there?
I was looking at the agenda and Angel read that it was 2301 and I'm looking at the form and it was saying 2201. So no, yeah. So whatever is the right one, that's what this is. So which one, does anyone know which is the right one? I don't think it matters actually, because if there isn't a 2201 already, then go on, Angel.
So we do have a 2201. I believe we assigned that to one of your emergency one of your first emergency resolutions we did at the beginning. I got the 2301 from you, Commissioner Epstein, when you were submitting in the reports. So I took that as we're renaming it with this fiscal year, which is I didn't question it because it came in that way. If you would like for it to be in accordance to the calendar year as it's traditionally done, I can make those updates to those numbers if you'd like.
Right. I think at NCLA we've used it as a fiscal year. So we start with our first resolution that we make in our fiscal year, and if we make other ones, it will continue. So I think if we leave it at 2301, it's consistent with what NCLA has done in the past.
And then any following resolutions you'll get after that will just continue with the naming convention 2302 or 3 or 4.
4, 5, yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Any other comments or questions? So Angel, will you see if there are any public comments?
If there's a member of the public who would like to speak on this item, item number 9, please indicate so by raising your hand. I see no public comment at this time, President Hill.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move to adopt resolution to 2023-01, setting the appropriations limit for fiscal year 22-23.
Second by Meadows.
All right, Angel, will you please take the vote?
Yes, if you agree with the motion on the table, please indicate so by saying aye. Vice President Schmidt,
Aye.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. President Hill,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes with 4 votes in favor.
Item number 10, adopt the resolution 2023-02, the annual levy resolution. This is Ann.
Okay, so this resolution we do each year, and it's actually, in prior years, we didn't have a set rate each year, and the NCLA actually would meet, and the county would tell us how much they need, and we would only charge the residents exactly what they needed, so that the rate would change from year to year. This form is needed by NBS. It basically, I don't know what it does. It authorizes them of how much, even though it's set, even though we have a ballot measure and it's set for 20 years, this is done annually. It's given to NBS, and it's part of the process with the county of notifying the county which parcels and how much to collect for NCLA. So this is just this year's. It's the same as it's been in the past several years. Yes.
Did I understand say that in previous years it fluctuated based on the requests from the library system, or has it always been?
No, so when NCLA started in 1985, the ballot measure that passed was that they could collect up to $36 a year, but it would be determined each year based on what the county came and said that was needed. And so this body would meet and determine
the county as a whole, or the county library system?
No, just, yeah, when I'm saying the county, it's Santa Clara County Library District would tell us what the staffing needs were and the cost, and it actually went by person, listed the person, how much they got, the salary. Anyway, so the exact amount, and then that would be determined. So anyway, some years it would actually go down from the year before. We don't do that anymore. The last parcel tax we passed in 2010 was a 20-year parcel tax at a set rate each year of $76 a parcel. So the rate is set. So, I mean, the other thing that we can do is not charge. So that's something when we get to our discussion in on number 11 of what we can do and what we should do with the money we're collecting, given the changes. But that is an option, is we don't charge. But basically, this is each year we approve the tax levy is given to NBS.
And it can either be $76 or nothing, as opposed to the first time.
Yes.
First 10 years.
So that was just a little historical information about
Okay.
kind of setting this tax levy. And it used to be a bigger thing than it is now, because now it's always the same.
Okay. I make a motion, we adopt the resolution 2023-02.
And is there a second? Okay. Commissioner Epstein seconded. And before we take the vote, I'd like to see if there are any public comments.
Members of the public, if you'd like to speak on this item, please indicate so by raising your hand. President Hill, I see no hands raised.
All right, thank you.
We will then proceed with the motion on the floor, which was a motion by Schmidt seconded by Epstein to adopt resolution 23-02. If you agree, please indicate so by saying aye. Vice President Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Meadows.
Aye.
Thank you, Secretary Epstein.
Aye.
Thank you, President Hill.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 4 in favor. 1 absent.
And just an administrative question, Suzanne, I see that our signatures are needed. Do we need to get together to sign them and then represent these?
We need to sign them. So we can either each individually go into the office and to see Angel and sign a form there, or you and I can meet and sign them. We do need to sign them.
Okay. And then Angel, will the signed documents be included in the next minutes, or how would that work?
No, the signed documents will just be turned to the county. The minutes will just reflect that this item was passed as presented.
All right. So Suzanne, we can figure out the logistics at another afterwards. So. Thank you.
Good catch, Cindy. We do need to sign them.
Yes. So item number 10, item number 11, consider and approve a capital investment in library to uphold the level of service. And Suzanne, would you like to start the conversation on this one?
Yes. First, did every one of the commissioners get a chance to read the proposal? So
Yes.
we don't need to go over that. I had Angel send out a copy of the full text of the ballot measure as well. It should be in your agenda packet if you have looked at it in the past few hours, just so that you can see the actual language as well. So we have a situation, and yes, Sally?
Just clarifying, did you just say that there's an updated packet that was just sent out a few hours ago? Because I did not see that.
I did not receive it.
There was an attachment I received by Secretary Epstein this afternoon. There's no updated packet. There was just an additional attachment added to this item under item 11.
But where would we access that? I didn't see that there was something else. Did you email it to us?
I am looking at my Outlook to confirm before I say whether
Yeah.
it did or did not. And
It is
basically,
it's on the online system because I've been following along, but I
Oh.
didn't see an email.
I failed to send out the update, so my apologies, Authority.
Okay.
Sally, what it is, it's the Measure L library tax ballot language that was
Okay,
passed in 2010, which you've received before. I would just decided that
Okay.
maybe-
From 2010, from 2010.
Yeah, from 2010.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, just in case someone wanted to see the full paragraph, not just the phrase I pulled out in this very quick summary. I didn't want to get too long. So our situation, and we've over the last couple of years had discussions about this, what we can do with the excess funds in NCLA. And I explained in here how it started. It was just that we have, in spite of, I'm sure, all very good efforts in 2009 to set the rate at the correct rate, it is gathering more money. And this is before we ever had any credits or anything, or any COVID or anything that had added to the situation. And at that time, this is when we were just really using the money for the staffing and at the utmost. We did increase hours, but our fund balance projection to the end of 2030 showed that there was still going to be over $4 million. And so ever since that was brought to our attention, we've been discussing things that it could be used for. And we're very limited by the ballot language, what we can use it for. When the talk was, oh, well, we can use it to build a new library, the kibosh basically was put on that. by our then council that don't even go there. So this is an opportunity. So what has changed in the last month, basically, which I wanted to bring to people's attention, is that in the Los Altos Library, the Friends of the Los Altos Library have moved their operations into the library. In order to do that, the library gave up patron area, patron space. And so this has decreased some of the services that the patrons enjoyed prior to that move. So we suddenly have an ability to fit into one of our allowed uses by the ballot measure to spend the money for general purposes to uphold services. So I'm proposing that we use, so now we have, so I talked about the 4+ million we had, now we have 7+ million. And as Chuck just reported, every year we're collecting over $1 million. He's just reported the next 2 years, we're not going to be most likely being called on to use it for the staffing purposes because of the various credits and things that are still being applied. So even though we have a fund balance of like 7,200,000, very soon it's going to be over 8 million, over 9 million. So I'm proposing we take 7 million of it now and use it to expand the Los Altos Library. And in my proposal, I was gathering the sources from each of the library entities, 3 to 3.5 million from that's in the building fund at Lolly, and $1 million from Friends of the Library. They don't quite have that, but maybe they can, maybe 900,000, but what they have, and apply it. And to do this now, and not we've been talking about expanding a library for over 20 years, for not expanding, building a new library for over 20 years. And we've really gone through a number of close iterations of almost doing it. One was in 2008, we had a needs assessment done for $40,000. And then that was put on hold because the city was going to do a whole general plan for the Civic Center. And we went through several years of the general plan. The community center was going to be built first, and then the library was going to be built. And then that fell apart. Then just the last couple of years, we restarted, NCLA restarted up a redevelopment task force to build a new library. We spent 2 years working on that. We did another updated needs assessments. We did an architectural, our engineering assessment of the costs, and then COVID struck, so we didn't go to ballot. But it's sort of been happening like this for over 20 years. This is an opportunity where we can take what the money we have, $11 million, and actually get a few thousand more square feet. So that not only do we restore the space that was gone, but the needs, the services that the library is providing, the demand for them in terms of spaces to meet has really increased. So we can provide and do a lot of good things with that money. And but we can't wait. If we wait, then we no longer can use the NCLA money, which is a big hunk of this money, because it has to somehow fall under the realms of upholding services. If we wait a few years, then it's no longer upholding services. Everyone's gotten used to the new reality. And I see Brian is here. He's the librarian for Los Altos. He can speak on this, maybe Chuck, but Brian, do you have anything to add?
Certainly, I'd be happy to elaborate more. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Bell. I'm the acting community librarian while Rose is away on maternity leave. And I think what Suzanne's touching on is with the Friends moving into the library, we were happy to be able to carve out that space for our partners. But we did lose about, I believe, 750 square feet in, area for them to house them, which is about roughly 4 units of shelving, which I believe when Rose did the math was about 14,000 books. This also requires that we kind of relocate the quiet area to another location because it's right next to kind of where the Friends will be working. And I think just from the few years I've been working here at Los Altos Library, it's a wonderful library, and I think it's very heavily used and very loved by our community. And because of that, I think the infrastructure doesn't quite meet the modern needs of what the community demands. And, even prior to the pandemic, I'm told we always had questions about, meeting rooms for folks to work together, which unfortunately we can't provide. And, with the way hybrid work is going in like virtual meetings, there's just even more demand for that now as we move forward. And of course, our community room is used for both programming for the library and also as a space for our community to rent the room as a rental space for programs. And we could always use more of that as we currently allow Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays for rental to the public, which is prime time for them to use, but also happens to be prime time for us to do programs because that's when the community actually has time to bring their family and their kids out. So we're always in this constant flux of struggling with space. And, with librarians, we're always gonna, do more with less. We're gonna try our best to meet our community needs, but the reality is the space is constraining what we could do for it. So that's my piece of it from working on the floor. Chuck may have more comments from a higher end, kind of a broader picture, and I'll leave that to him unless you have questions for me.
And I want to add, thank you very much, Brian. I just wanted to add that one of the things that we could do if I think one of our libraries in the Santa Clara County system, might have been Gilroy, expanded their library out under the eaves. We have very wide eaves on our library. So even by doing that, we can then, in that strip of floor space, it suddenly allows us to provide electricity to all of our patrons who are sitting near the windows, which are their favorite seating places. They can plug in, if we do that, they can plug in their computers. One of the things with our Los Altos library that it hasn't been updated since 1990 is that we have a cement floor. We can't get the electricity to all the different places that the patrons want to sit in this new age of computers, right? New age being 32 years later, the new age. So even there's just lots of different little things that this actually opens up that are possibilities. On the flip side, other uses for our excess money, we're supposed to come out to basically, when we have a parcel tax, we're supposed to have figured it out, especially if you have a set parcel. You're collecting more than you use at the beginning, and then you start requiring more than you're collecting at the end, and it comes down to zero. So we can stop collecting the parcel tax for the next 8 years. We still have an excess. We can increase the hours that our libraries are open. That's an allowed use, and we certainly can do that. And this is the people's library. It's their space. It's there, and it'd be nice if it were open longer hours. But we are limited, so this is an opportunity, and I think it's anyway. I'm throwing it out there, and I would like to hear a discussion.
And I'd like to add that you may have heard that we have residents from Los Altos Hills, a married couple their children grew up in Los Altos, and they're an elderly couple, and they want to donate $500,000 to the library. They would like to have something that is physical, something that will be there for many years. And so their son has been working with Lolly, and then we asked him to also meet with Jennifer Weeks, the Santa Clara County Library librarian, and also Gabe. And in talking with everybody, we all came together. Gabe and, well, actually Jennifer proposed that the wall that where if you ever seen the giraffe looking into the children's room, that wall be extended out towards San Antonio. And actually not the wall, but create an exterior garden with canopies and various other amenities so that the children's room could benefit from it, have expanded children's space, and that the orchard room could also have open doors and expand out that way too. That's one of the proposals. And just to alleviate everybody's minds, the orchard, the trees that are there would not be touched. They would be part of that whole thing, so that the historical part of the orchard would be preserved. So there's opportunities like this. Jennifer Weeks has offered the county district to be the project manager, understanding that Los Altos is very limited with staff. Gabe agrees with that. Gabe has been talking to his facilities people about what can we do, how can we do this? And there are possibilities just in that area. Suzanne's brought up some other ideas. So the only thing we can't do, well, two things, we can't go underground and we can't go on top. So, which is, anyway, so we can't go on top because the architectural assessment indicated that the roof could not take it. It was not designed to have a second story. So as you can see, there's a lot of interest. So I'm going to go to Vice President Schmidt and then to Suzanne.
I was one of the ones pushing that we use this money, so I'm glad to see that it's going towards something. I have difficulty adopting this resolution because it seems very specific without much detail, if that makes sense. I would like to hear from the other stakeholders. I would like to have some more concrete ideas about how this would be used, because there sounds like there's several good ideas, but I think they need to be brought together with more cohesion other than we're just going to spend this money on something good before I could adopt a resolution. So I'm not sure how we proceed on that, but I would have a hard time adopting this as it stands for those reasons.
And go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, so yeah, I was gonna mention the garden, but I didn't know whether it was still like secret or something, so I didn't want to bring
No,
it
it's
to a
not.
public meeting. Yeah, so this would tie, yeah, so we could tie in, if doing this now, we can tie in with that change too, and maybe we can get the children's story time space that we so desperately need, tied into this. So what there's sort of two steps to this proposal. One is it's just the agreeing that with the concept, I guess, of using it for this purpose. Secondly, I think what we do need to hammer out the details, but in terms of what we could achieve, I really think that an initial architectural sitting down with an architect and the parties from the library and the county to figure out what we could do for $11 million and present that to us as to whether we actually, so I think there's an initial cost of an architectural cost to do some very initial study of what could be done and how much that gains us, and before we commit to, but again, time is of the essence, so I would think that we would have to at least do that kind of a step now if we're going to actually seriously consider this. So Lisa is exactly right. We need to know what we're getting for our $7 million. It's a good idea, but what does it get us?
And I'd also like to bring everybody's attention to agenda item number 14, because the Library Commission has been thinking along the same lines for 2.5, 3 years about reestablishing the library redevelopment program. So they are one of the stakeholders, and Nelvin will be giving that presentation later on in the meeting tonight. So Lisa, your request definitely hit home. Everybody is very interested in seeing what can we do to make the library more functional. It has hit the max of capacity and capability.
Sally has her hand.
Sally, oh, there's your hand. Yeah, thank you, Sally.
Thank you. So good, intriguing idea. So I like that. Just a couple clarifications. I assume this would not apply to Woodland because we're specifically talking about the Friends space and the services then. Okay, that confirms that. I do think it sounds like we're listening to old former legal advice. I think it would be a good idea to run this by current counsel, because again, the circumstances are probably somewhat different. And I just think there's enough potential complications across the different groups that would support this, that we need to have counsel look at that again. That's always important. And then the other thing regarding all the library related entities, and of course, let's not forget potential other private funding. You mentioned this couple, but there could be other people depending on the nature. There probably would need to be an agreement drawn up showing commitment. So let's say, I'm just going to throw a number out there. Let's say there's a $15 million project that is sourced through the various library associated groups and private funding. So the commitment is important, because if Lolly decides they're gonna add on to Woodland and never mind the main library, then we're short that funding. So it has enough parties in it that there has to be some way, again, this probably ties into council, again, SEL, legal advice on this, but there probably has to be a mechanism to formalize it. So, and then we'll obviously have more discussions about this, but one immediate discussion that comes to my mind is it a good investment to add on to this, what is at its foundation, a 1964 building, and I have no way to answer that question, but as you mentioned, the cement or concrete floors, I heard also there's limited capacity to expand IT capabilities, not just because of the electrical, but just there isn't. I don't remember what it was, but I've been walked through that in the past. Sorry, I didn't update myself on that report. So we have to make sure that it's a reasonable idea, because we don't want to spend, again, whether it's 11 or 15, just throwing a round number, we don't want to spend that money if it's got to all be redone in 10 years at some point. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions we can come up with. I do like the concept because really it would benefit the community tremendously, but it also might be a good question once we flesh it out a little bit more for focus groups, because if council says this reading, legal counsel says the reading and interpretation is correct, we want to make sure the community is apprised and we get some feedback on that too. So that's just my initial comments on the item. But again, I think it's an idea worth exploring.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I like all the stuff Sally said. Back in, I don't know, it's right before 2008 or right around that, we actually had architectural drawings made up for expanding the existing library. And then people decided, no, let's build a new library. So the thing is, it just keeps going down the road. The costs of construction keep going up. And NCLA usually can't put our money into building the new library. And this is just this opportunity. So that was all just the thoughts. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we can still go through the whole thing with the task force and the redevelopment thing, and years can go by if we can keep doing that, but I don't know that we can participate. And this is just an opportunity for now. And yeah, maybe in 10 years or 15 years, we're going to have a new library, but in the meantime, we could have this better library right now.
Well, and maybe the first step is just to have legal review this and to confirm
That we could use the money.
that we could use the money.
Yeah.
And maybe they have an even broader interpretation. I mean, I'm not expecting that, but I think that's really kind of the first step, at least in my mind, it would be. I mean, I like the idea. And again, there's probably a lot of questions along the way, but I think it's a good way to think of leveraging the money to increase services through adding space to the building.
Lisa?
Yeah, again, I want to say I'm happy that we could spend the money on this, something this substantial, but as we bring in other parties that we're going to participate in this process with, it just gets harder and harder. We're going to have a champion to do the whole thing, and we have to get all the stakeholders to agree that that's going to work. I'm not dismissing the idea, but it's a big lift, and it can't be the lift by the NCLA alone. So it's admirable, but it's big.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I do want to clarify one thing. The building fund which is being held right now by Lolly was originally held at the JPA in the county, and then was transferred to Lolly for better investment opportunities. That actually, the city has say on when to release that for building.
It actually doesn't, Suzanne. I
Yeah.
double checked our bylaws, the NCLA bylaws. But NCLA passed a motion a couple of years ago during the task force time to release the funds when the city committed to building out a library or a remodeled library. So
that's what we're talking about. The city,
yes.
the city is the one who has to say.
The city comes to NCLA, makes that request.
Well, not to NCLA, not to Lolly.
I meant to Lolly.
Yeah.
The city
Okay,
comes
okay,
to
we're
the
really
city
getting
comes
confused.
to Lolly and makes that request. Lolly does not automatically give it up, so it has to be a firm commitment.
Okay, so I don't know. That's okay. I'm not going to go down that path because that was set when the money was transferred from this county to Lolly and who was going to release it. But yeah, but it's the same thing. The city will have the opportunity to decide whether to ask Lolly that this is
Right.
where to spend the building fund money for the library. I forget what. And I'm very sure that the Friends would be doing this since their cost situation would put in their money. Yeah.
And Lisa, you probably know that Suzanne and I led the most recent library redevelopment task force that was created by NCLA. So we've been, like Sally was saying, we've been down this road where all of the stakeholders, bringing them together, coming to consensus, looking for private funding. Lolly paid for a fundraiser to interview residents of both Los Altos Hills and Los Altos and what they would commit to. So there's a recent long history of trying to build out a new library. So I'm really pleased that Suzanne has identified funds that might be able to be used from NCLA to move forward with this process. So it sounds like we're in agreement that the first step is to find out from legal whether or not this is doable for NCLA to allocate money for a build out. And then the next step, I think
because it's to uphold services. So it's not
correct.
it's not just a capital.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
okay. Yeah. Just as long as we're okay.
got it. And then another step is to listen to the Library Commission's presentation, and then to start and to talk with Gabe and to Jennifer about what are some of their next steps, what do they see. So So NCLA as an organization needs to, at some point, decide if we want to start this ball rolling again, with or without funds. So,
Yeah, I agree with all that. It's the motion that was put before us, or the item that was put before
Right.
us, is much more specific than I could support at this
Right.
point, because it makes a lot of assumptions. I certainly agree with getting the ball
Okay.
rolling.
Sally,
Yeah, President Hill, we have a public comment, I think.
thank you. You all are seeing things that I'm not seeing, so I really appreciate this. So,
You have to look at the participants list in order to see.
okay,
Yeah.
so Angel,
Yeah, I see one member of the public with their hand raised. His name is Pierre Bedard. We will allow him to speak. Pierre, are you there?
I am here.
We can hear you.
Hi.
We'll give you. Go ahead.
Great. I just want to point out that in November of 2020, I wrote a pretty extensive critique of the JPA. And one of the things I pointed out in it was that your ability to designate revenue pretty much to any use that helps the inhabitants that live under the JPA is permitted. I mean, you can pay a lawyer to get that. I know I didn't pass the bar, but as a member of the public, I'm telling you, that's how I read it. But, you know, I'm sure somebody will confirm that, but it is very expansive. And I think it allows you tremendous power in helping the inhabitants, which is your purpose. Thank you. That's all.
thank you, Pierre. Suzanne,
Yeah, I just want to point out that the JPA's agreement that created NCLA is very expansive. We can do all kinds of things. What we are restricted by is our current source of funds, which is the parcel tax language. So that's what we're looking at, is what we can use these particular funds for. If we had funds from an unrestricted source, we could use it for a very, very wide range of things to do with the library.
so Suzanne, I don't believe your motion was seconded. Do you want to modify it or withdraw it for the time being?
Okay, well, let's have, so Sally was suggesting that we first hear back from legal counsel as to whether we can use these funds
Correct.
under the ballot measure language that restricts the use of our parcel tax funds, whether we can use these funds for this purpose. So I think that's the next step right now. I don't know whether we do have a motion for a follow-up step or whether we want an exploratory committee or
Right.
And President Hill, if I may, I was going to suggest that perhaps we just take that direction from what you have given and we proceed with that step, because the item will have to return in any event. And so I think it probably be more clear and it sounds like that everybody is in consensus with what's being proposed. So I suggest that we just take those directions from you and we'll look into the issue, and then the item can return before you again.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Lau. All right, so Sally, you had your hand raised.
Actually, I think that Ms. Lai's suggestion is probably the most straightforward. I was going to mention something, but it's probably too complicated at this point without that information first, which was to have, Los Altos city manager in along with, the various related parties to have a study session or something like that. But I really think that the clearest suggestion is the one that Ms. Lai just made.
All right. And Suzanne, will you accept that direction?
Yeah. So our situation is we very rarely meet and we have a great deal of trouble trying to meet. And so how will we get the information from Ms. Lai? Will it wait till the
Lisa?
next meeting or will it be sent to us?
Lisa?
We should set monthly meetings, and if we
Yes.
don't need them, cancel them. I think as we discussed last time, this kind of ongoing figure out what a time is, I don't think that's working. If we have nothing to discuss, we can always cancel a meeting, or every 2 months, but it's
Right.
kind of hard to schedule these.
We-
at
Well, I
different-
appreciate both of you bringing that up because that was on my future agenda items, is to schedule our next few meetings. So do you want to do that right now? You want to insert that in this topic, or do you want to wait towards the end?
We should probably wait towards the end.
Thank you. All right, we will wait. So
So the question is, how do we wait to the next meeting to get the information, or will we hear back? Will the commissioners hear back so that we can either?
I don't believe we can hear back without it being a meeting.
Oh, I'm not sure.
We can do it two at this, there are two approaches at the same time. We can send the information to the board, provided you don't talk about it unless you're in a meeting, and then the board can schedule a meeting either as part of regular meeting or a special meeting to
Okay.
Discuss it.
All right.
Okay, so you can send us something ahead of time. You can, your legal report.
We can distribute it, yes.
Okay, thank you. So that'll be your action. All right.
So I guess I want to just get a feel that if she comes back and says that we can use it, are we all on board that we want to use it in this manner? Is anyone?
That's the consensus that I have heard from everybody. This is the first step.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to get some kind of positive.
Lisa?
I still would leave, if you want to adopt a resolution, I would leave it looser than what you put together, which was very specific. I just, committing people to a certain amount of money inside of a resolution doesn't.
Yeah, no, this is a proposal. I don't know, did I say it's not a resolution? It's just a proposal. It was a proposal for discussion. So this,
Right.
it's just this opportunity just actually came up. So this whole.
And consider and approve, I guess, so that I struck that as meaning something we're going behind and taking forward. They're just.
Yeah, I see what you mean on the agenda. Yeah, I was just looking at my proposal. It's an opportunity. I just wanted to bring it to our attention.
Thank you.
So, and I'll just say it's an opportunity worth exploring. The first step has been defined, and then we would, I'm sure, all have additional questions at another meeting before we'd make a formal decision to take it forward. But I think it's definitely worth exploring.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Okay.
Okay. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I look forward to seeing what our next steps can be. I'd like us to move on to number 12, NCLA billing. Review and approve invoices for payments.
Okay, Lisa.
Do I read this correctly? We haven't paid general counsel services for the whole year?
No, we paid them. It's just for the last several months. So any bill has to be approved by this board. So we were supposed to meet in May, and we would have approved it in May. Anyway, we're supposed to have 2 set meetings a year, one in January and one in May. And any special meeting we want to call, other than that, we can call.
But it shows them open from 10/27. Is that correct? I just clicked on the
maybe.
bill and payment.
There's at 231. So I think this actually brings up a good question. And that is for all these emergency meetings we're having, I don't see why we have legal counsel involved at all. Why are we getting charged around $250 every time there's a meeting? It's just the same emergency resolution that the date changes on it. We can do that. We don't need legal counsel there to do that. So in the future, let's not have that charged. But yeah, so when we meet, we approve what bills have come in. That happens to be the only bills we have are these bills from Myers-Nave. So what we're doing is we're approving payment of them. And so I moved to approve payment of them.
Yeah,
Is there a second?
I guess I feel a little bad about us leaving bills outstanding for 9 months. We did the
That's
same
why
thing
we
to
should-
MG.
And
Part of it, so Lisa, part of it is the transition from having Marcy as our administrator to the city, all of that staffing change. So they just did not surface until recently.
Well, we also didn't pay Marcy for about half a year, if I remember correctly. So
anyway,
I
I
think that's
second.
important.
I second the motion that we pay our bills.
All right.
Okay.
Is there any public comment?
Members of the public, if you'd like to speak on item number 12, please indicate so by raising your hand. I see no one with their hand raised, President Hill.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Angel, will you please take the vote?
Yes, the motion was made by Secretary Epstein, seconded by Commissioner Meadows to approve the invoices as presented. And if you agree, please indicate so by saying aye. Vice President Schmidt,
Aye.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
hi,
thank you. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. President Hill,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 absent.
All right, item number 13 is to approve the annual billing, to authorize annual billing to the member entities per the JPA contract. And I believe Suzanne has put together 2 requests, one to Los Altos and one to Los Altos Hills. Suzanne, would you like to provide any additional
this is just
information?
the standard form, and this is the standard annual billing. It's by the JPA contract, by the JPA agreement that the 2 cities agreed to. And so that's what we're doing. It's just our regular annual billing, and I haven't received anything for audit for this past year. Of course, we haven't received an audit either. So the only thing we had to divide up was the legal. And that's it. That's just straightforward.
And was this the item we were discussing whether the JPA could pay for it or not, or whether, or is this a different discussion?
This is
No,
different.
this is just based on JPA, the terms of the JPA agreement. This is the annual billing to the 2 cities.
For all administrative services or
For, okay, right on it says,
basic services?
sections 12 of the agreement states, the city of Los Altos shall provide staff and basic services at no cost to the agency. All costs and expenses of an outside nature, such as auditing, legal, consultants, or the like, shall be apportioned equally among the member entities.
Okay.
I think everybody has to realize that when this was created, until it was created, the promise to the residents who were the ones who came to the cities trying to save their library was that all the parcel tax money, if you collect the money, it'll go to the library. It won't, there won't be any chance it gets used for any other purposes. So anyway, so that's why the language is spelled out. Okay.
So
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, but these are defined purposes which the money can be used for, legal and audit. So this is, I would make a motion, but you probably want to ask for a public comment first.
right. So Angel, will you please see if there's any public comment?
Of course, if there's a member of the public who would like to comment on this item, which is item 13 on the agenda, please indicate so by raising your hand. I see no one with their hands raised. President Hill,
Thank you. And is there a motion? Suzanne?
Move to pay the bills, to send out the invoices, sorry, move to send out the invoices, the annual invoices to the 2 member entities.
And a
Second.
second?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, I will take Lisa as the first voice I heard. And Angel, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, I just was finishing writing down that you heard Lisa. So yes, that's the second. If you agree with the motion on the table, please indicate so by saying aye. Vice President Schmidt,
Aye.
thank you. Secretary Epstein,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Meadows,
Aye.
thank you. President Hill,
Aye.
thank you. Motion passes 4 in favor, 1 absent.
All right. Moving on to informational items, I would like to have the Library Redevelopment Task Force. And that presentation is going to be by Neville G.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Just want to make sure that you can see and hear me properly.
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
All right, it's almost 6:45. How much time do you want to give me for the short presentation?
How about 15 minutes?
Sounds good. Let me share my desktop then.
Because I'm assuming that we've all taken a look at the slides and that you can hit the high points.
I will do that. 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this actually came out of one of our subcommittees, the Future Subcommittee. At the time, it was myself, Julie Crane, and Ying Lu, who represented the Los Altos Hills. Now, the report itself is over a year old, actually. And since that time, obviously, the economic environment has changed. So I think as we go into the report, we should, think about how that environment changes, not necessarily findings, but perhaps the context for the recommendations. We start off by grounding ourselves in the Santa Clara County Library District mission. The key words I kind of got out of this mission statement is that it's open, it's focused on information, knowledge, with free access, and essentially serving the community. We're unique in the fact that we have 2 library branches, but as folks have talked about, it's been some time since the structure of these branches have changed. It was 1990 that the voters approved a tax to expand the main library. Woodland branch was built in 1975. In total, we have about 32,650 square feet to serve our community. This is a table that compares the various libraries inside the Santa Clara County Library District. The red means it's either oldest or smallest, and as you can see, Los Altos, Main, and Woodland basically are the oldest. We have basically about the second smallest footprint, but that footprint also serves is the second busiest in the district behind Cupertino. And when I say busiest, I'm talking about annual circulation and annual gate count. What was kind of surprising is that if you look at the square footage per 1,000 residents, we're actually not that bad. We're not nearly as small as Milpitas and Morgan Hill, but we're certainly, we have less square footage per 1,000 people than like Saratoga, which is an outlier. As I think Suzanne had mentioned, there was a significant amount of heavy lifting that was done by NCLA and also other folks, starting with a needs assessment back in 2018 that said we need a minimum of 12,000 square feet, identifying where those square feet could be used, initial cost estimate of $50 million price range, your task force with a significant budget for outreach, for identifying other perhaps private donations and how to design a bond measure. A lot of people in the community interviewed. And as was mentioned, the plans were shelved because of COVID, because of other bond measures that were going to take effect. And the key message on this page is that the need for library improvement remains. If anything, the needs have become more diverse. We're talking about higher density housing. We're talking about population growth, but at the same time, it's tempered by the fact that the economy has changed. And I believe in a recent polling, the voters are not very positive on essentially passing additional taxes on themselves. The polling identified some of the areas, and they're really not that much different from the needs assessment. Basically, more space for children's programs, for quiet space, for studying, meeting, etc. Obviously, with a larger footprint, you can accommodate those needs. Milpitas has 60,000 square feet, and they have 4 meeting rooms in total, plus a community meeting room. Saratoga has 48,500, and they have 2 small meeting rooms and a community room, which is larger than our orchard room. Morgan Hills basically has the same amount of space, I think, combined as our library, a little bit larger. The unique thing about them is that they have a partition wall, which allows them to split their large community room into 2 parts. And as one of the assignments coming out of our infrastructure subcommittee, we're looking into whether a partition wall makes sense to retrofit into the orchard room. Gilroy, also, 2 rooms. So that leads us to a whole set of questions that the Library Commission was thinking were relevant at the time, which is, one, obviously, what are the needs of Los Altos for its library in the future? I mentioned higher density housing. What's the right footprint? Does it make sense to have 2 branches or just 1? Obviously, I think the answer is once you have 2, it's very difficult to think about shrinking that down to 1 because you still have an existing lot that can only accommodate so much expansion. Other thoughts such as maybe we can combine fighting requests. So that's why we kind of, at this point, said, there are a number of factors to be tested. Costs of change, the ability to fund, the time required to complete. And that is why we recommended that the Library Commission request that the NCLA reconstitute the redevelopment task force with the goal of developing that vision and strategy to see what are the best alternatives and define a plan for achieving the necessary funding given the economic environment. And in turn, we'll work with you to see how we can best assist. Our commission is mostly an advice and recommendation one. We don't have any budget to apply, but we do have a very dedicated and enthusiastic volunteer staff as commissioners. And I believe that is the presentation. And I believe I also did it in less than 15 minutes.
Thank you, Nelvin.
You're welcome,
So
Cindy.
I'd like to see if there are any comments or clarifying questions for Nelvin.
Can we unstop sharing so we can see everybody again?
Yep, I'm gonna do that.
So I'll go through the commissioners first, and then I'll ask for any public comments.
Thank you for the presentation, Nelvin. It helped a lot to see the background history. I just was not aware of most of it, and I appreciate that that presentation and helping me see.
You're welcome.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I think that NCLA has done pretty much everything NCLA can do. Oh, we spent 2 years and we got to this point. We actually hired the consultant to work with us on organizing it, what we needed to do in terms of, we did 2 community surveys. We did a 3rd in person with 100 top, whatever they were called, Cindy, influential people, 100 influential people. We actually did more. We did the FAQ. We did just about we had the website, everything's ready, and it was ready really to hand off. It's at the point where we need community meetings, and then we need to go to the ballot. Basically, we need the community meetings to get people aware of what the problems are at the library and current restrictions, and to hear their feedback. But what was suggested actually by our consultant, one of the things that was suggested was based on the type of ballot measure. If it's through any kind of governmental agency, it takes a 2/3 vote. If it can be a citizen-driven ballot measure, then he believed that it would take 55%. So at this point, it might be better if it became either a citizen-driven measure through some non-governmental groups such as Friends of the Library or Lolly, or combined of the 2, or yet a 3rd that's just a redevelopment task force. We've done a lot of the legwork. We've done a lot of the preparatory stuff. We have handouts. I mean, we've got a lot, but I think NCLA is the wrong group to go forward with it. It also required us meeting every month, and that was something that was also a frustration to the task force, because sometimes NCLA didn't have a meeting that month, and they kept wanting to present and have feedback and such. So it was, we're just not the right nature at this point of an organization to do that. If you're going to a ballot measure, NCLA, so it's 2 things. If you get the citizen group, then it becomes a citizens ballot measure, and you raise some funds that'll pay for the ballot measure. If it is going to be carried on by the Library Commission, so the first ballot measure for the 1990 redevelopment, it was the Library Commission who did all the background stuff and had the meetings and came to NCLA and asked us, NCLA as a group, to put it through NCLA on a ballot, because NCLA is both Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. So if it's going to continue in a government group, NCLA can be the mechanism for getting that bond measure, for presenting the bond measure to the public. So it's no longer just one city's bond measure. It's both, and that's why last meeting I brought up the whole thing about the county parcels that are part of our library area, and if we're going to do something of that nature with NCLA, this body should be looking into actually expanding what NCLA is to include that portion of the county. So it really depends on what direction the library redevelopment task force or group, or whatever we want to call it, goes, whether it's going to go through a private non-government path, then we wouldn't be involved. If it's going to go through government path, which means 2/3 vote, then we as a group, our part would be to see if we actually can get the wider base, because it's almost as many people as are in Los Altos Hills that are in the county that are being supported by our library, and that whatever cost we're trying to get for the parcel tax or the bond measure, spreading it out over a larger base makes it easier to sell.
So let me, I see that Sally has her hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you, Nelvin. Great job presenting. Very succinct. You used only 1/3 of your time. I think 5 minutes instead of 15. So, yeah, some aspects were dated, but most I think are still relevant. But I want to pick up on what Secretary Epstein was saying. So all right, let me just back up a minute. So if the mechanism we discussed earlier in this conversation about a coalition of NCLA library-related entities and potentially private donors, if that coalition can self-fund, you don't need a bond measure anyway. So it depends what you're doing. I mean, if you're going to right size what the funding is to do something to the library or libraries, but I'm going to say library in the scenario we discussed earlier, then there's no need for a bond measure because you've got all the money. Now, I don't know how much we can do with that. Again, whether it's 11 million, 15 million, whatever it is, I don't know that we can do, certainly can't do everything that we can imagine because we've got vivid imaginations and strong community support for the library. But I just wanted to point that out. So now, if we do need to go for bond measure, governmental isn't necessarily require a 2/3 vote. It depends on the mechanism they're going to use. So it could be a simple majority or it could be a 2/3 vote, again, depending. But I don't think, I think as you were going down the path to talk about a citizens initiative, that requires a simple majority, not 55%, but basically 50.1. And so there's an attraction to a citizens initiative. I don't know how that works across, well, I mean, it can work across two entities. We see that with other, just like the Valley Water had voting. So I guess you just file with the county and, we would have to define who the voters are, whether it's existing or expanded, like you've been mentioning, Secretary Epstein. So I don't know, based on the city's needs, and we discussed this a little bit at the Library Commission, and Melvin, I don't recall whether you were there. I think Pierre was at the meeting as well, but where I talked a little bit about what we saw when we did polling around the public safety, potential bond issue for public safety improvements in Los Altos. And the library, and this was one of the items I think you mentioned in your presentation, Nelvin, was paired like Campbell had done. They actually paired their police station in the library. In the polling we did, that didn't rise to the top in terms of potential. So I would say if we're actually looking at needing more money than a coalition, if we decide to go down the coalition route, I'm just going to call it coalition for lack of knowing what to describe that proposal as, then we'd be best served to look at a citizens initiative. So I would say that. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg because you have to be able to describe what you're trying to do in order to get, and I know you've done a lot of that work already, so that's good. That would be easier to update. So to me, those are the clear options, is either the coalition self-funds, which could be limiting in terms of the budget to do whatever, or there could be a citizens initiative moving forward to try to put some level of funding on the board. But I think NCLA has to have its questions answered. If NCLA is involved in with the citizens initiative, we have to be able to defend the money we're already collecting and how that does or doesn't relate to increased requests for money. So that will, it's always hard to ask for money when you're already getting some money. So we thought NCLA was the natural home for this, given the efforts that you had in the past, all the lessons that you've learned as part of that process. If this were to be a citizens initiative, I think we'll have to do some thinking as to where the natural homes are, whether we actually have folks who are willing to be leaders in this, because coordinating it across multiple bodies is certainly more difficult, right? Yeah, so, but to me, at least, those seem like the logical, either the self-funded coalition approach, as we discussed earlier in the meeting, or a citizens initiative for a bond measure, which again, it requires a different set of logistics. Neither are logistically straightforward, but both, of course, are doable. So that's my comments.
Okay, I will take this feedback back to the Library Commission and report out the next time we meet. I think that we may very well come back to you for your expertise and your lessons learned, so we can possibly craft a way forward, because you certainly know the landscape much better than we do. All right, thank you.
Any other, okay, and Suzanne, and then I want to take public comments.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to let Lisa and Sally know, because they weren't there when we were doing this, that we were actually trying to get $60 million to build a new main library. And the polling was not, did not show that people were willing to give us that much money.
Yeah, I believe you guys were just a few percentage short. It's like 64% or.
But that's general polling, yeah. So then we were thinking maybe 35 million, but then we'd have to get the other money from either the cities or private, if we can get 15 or 20 million from private fundraising. So we were going down different lines, but the point was we were looking at a big number because we were looking at a new library.
Right.
It was a great cost. So what the coalition is looking at, as I'll jump on Sally's term, is this is the money we have. How much expansion can we get? Let's look at some architectural and see whether it's worth it. What can we do with our 15 million or 11 million? Because I'm sure there will, I would hope there would be some private donations that might flow in. So it might be 15.
Yeah. I understand. It's just that I don't think it could be an incremental investment given the nature of the main library. The fact that the foundation can only accept so much of a load, the fact that the footprint is such that it can't be expanded unless it goes into the orchard, which I understand is a no-no. So you're essentially locked into that particular footprint, and then what can you do beyond that? We haven't looked into that, but.
Well, yeah,
Right.
Those are details that we'd have to look into with the architect, and there are options.
Yeah, those are constraints though.
Yeah,
That have to be solved for.
There
So
are options. Yeah.
let me see if there are any public comments. Angel, will you please check?
Yes, if you'd like to comment on this item, which is informational item 14, please indicate so by raising your hand. President Hill, I see no one with their hands raised.
All right. Well, again, Nelvin, thank you, and thank the Library Commission for doing all of this research, pulling together what we had done and making this most recent update presentation.
You're very welcome. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 15, county update. Bryant and Chuck.
This is Chuck. I'll lead us off. Just two quick things. One, July is the second month of our summer reading program, during which we challenge all of our patrons to read 5 books. So if you haven't already signed up, that login information is on our website. And secondly, we would like to hear from you as SCCLD develops our new strategic plan to inform our priorities over the next several years. We'd like to hear from everyone. We'll be holding 3 community meetings this month, 2 in person and 1 virtual, to share information on our progress so far, to hear back from our patrons, local leaders, residents, and stakeholders. So the first one is Thursday, July 28th at 7 p.m. at Milpitas Library. Second one is via Zoom, Friday the 29th at 10 a.m. And then Saturday, July 30th at Gilbert Library at 10:30. And all of this information can be found on the website. That's it for me. And hand it over to Brian.
New. I apologize. This is the first NCLA meeting I think I've been called upon to give a presentation. I wasn't aware that I was supposed to bring something, but I can give you some quick updates off the top of my head. Rose will be returning as the community librarian starting in August, I believe August 1st, if nothing has changed. The project for building out the Friends of the Library space has been completed and they've started moving in, and we are going to start relocating our collections to adapt to the new space. So the kind of odd configuration we have right now that's confusing to everybody will soon be back to a more normal standard where people can find things a little bit more easily. And as the month kind of drifts into August and September, I'm sure all the new furniture and shelving will arrive. So we're very excited to be able to reopen that space next to the the city hall entrance back up to the public as a lounge space and storage for our magazine and newspaper collection. So look forward to a slight refreshing of kind of how the library will be oriented in that area. Other than that, I think Chuck covered most of it. Unless you have some questions for me, that's it from the library.
And let me just double check. Are there any public comments, Angel?
Member of the public, if you'd like to speak on this item, please indicate so by raising your hand. President Hill, I see no members of the public with their hands raised.
All right, and NCLA, I see Suzanne has a comment, question.
I just want to thank Brian for being a great interim librarian for Los Altos twice now, but really we couldn't have had anyone better. He's great. He's very supportive of and very enthusiastic.
Thank you. It's been been very eye-opening. You know, I started off at Woodland, so a little bit removed from the main branch and all that's happening. So getting the chance to really work with all these different stakeholders has kind of expanded my views of just how much support we have. And thank you to everybody who volunteers their time to keep our services available to the public.
So Brian, those of us that use the Woodland Library, will we see you there again?
It's difficult to say. Our staffing situation is a little wonky right now, so I think for the foreseeable future, you will see me still at Los Altos as we kind of straddle both worlds. But we'll do our best to make things back to normal as soon as we can.
Great, thank you, and thanks again for doing what you did, stepping in for Rose again. All right. So moving on to item number 16, the NBS annual report, expected income from parcel tax. I believe Suzanne, you're going to discuss this one?
Well, yeah, I don't think we really need to discuss it. It's here for your information. It is, as I mentioned before, their annual assessment. It lists how many parcels are actually going to be charged our tax and what the total levy will be. And it also has a list of the changes from the previous year to this year of parcels that are being taxed and an explanation as to why.
Thank you. And then any questions? All right, so moving on to item number 17, the Santa Clara County Investment Fund.
Yeah, should I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, so what we have attached here are the latest statements and trial balance from the county, from our account. This is where all our money is. All the details are there. It's very transparent to you commissioners. Also attached, though, this is something that you will want to note, is the first preliminary statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for this past year. And it will give you a feeling of where we're at in terms of our expenses and our fund balance, which I will just tell you right now at the end of June 30, 2022, $7,288,741.32. But that's for your information.
My apologies, I was sneezing.
Oh.
I figured you didn't need to hear that. And then also there's a document that Suzanne and I need to sign. Is there anyone? Yeah.
All five of us have to sign it. I'm sorry.
Great.
Skipped over the signatory card that's in that group too. All five of us. So I don't know. I'm thinking, I don't remember, Cindy, were we able to sign this individually and send them in just 5 different ones, or did they have to all be on the same sheet?
I think we better get the question answered by the people who are going to accept the form, and then we'll get back to NCLA.
Yeah, okay, well, that's me then. So,
Well, you or
I-
me.
I don't feel a need to sign a bank card. I mean, I don't intend to write checks or anything.
no, it's the authorized payments. So if for any reason the president and secretary are the ones who sign, but in case they're on vacation or something, someone needs to be paid or whatever, any of the other commissioners can sign it. So that's why they do need yours. Each year they do this. Each year it's updating the signature card. And they actually have to be real signatures. They can't be ones we can send across on the internet.
So
you're
so
right.
we will get that question answered if we can send in 5 forms or 1 form with all 5 signatures.
Yeah, so you will either be mailing, or maybe we'll have you download and then sign and mail in if we do it individually, or we'll have like one thing that somehow we're going to get each of us to sign the same form. It's
And
much
I
easier
offer
when
to
you-
drive around to everybody's homes and get their signatures. I've done it before for Lolly, so I know how to do this. So,
Yeah, and then when we start meeting again in person, this becomes much easier. We're all right there. We just pass it around the table. And I hope that will be soon.
and thank you. Sally,
Yeah, just update regarding that. The Los Altos City Council was planning on meeting in person starting after this summer break, so on the August 23rd meeting, but with the COVID upsurge and our city staff in particular have been hit quite significantly over the last week, so we are not anticipating meeting in person at our first August meeting back. I don't know when it would be, but we were almost there. We were gonna do it, you
It
know.
was so cold.
So close.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, thank you for that information, Sally. So moving on to staff updates. Angel.
Yes, thank you. I just have one quick update from the city perspective, and that is that John Furtado is no longer with the city. His last day was last week, Friday. However, the city was proactive and they've hired an interim finance director. And her name is Suzanne Niederhofer. I think I got that correct. I've been working with her only a week. There's been a change in the finance helm, if you will. And John Furtado was working with this authority. So I anticipate Suzanne will pick up where he left off.
Thank you for that information.
For sure. That's the only prepared update I have for you guys.
All right. And I'm going to go around the virtual room and see if anybody has anything they want to add to the comments. I'll start with Sally, Commissioner Sally. Commissioner Sally.
Commissioner Sally. Yes, I just want to express appreciation for pulling this meeting together as quickly as it was. And Secretary Epstein, I know you did a lot and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Vice President Schmidt.
I want to echo that as well. I feel like we went through some substantive issues and I appreciate that. I know I'm the newcomer here, so I asked many questions, but I really do appreciate all the information that went back and forth in this meeting.
And Secretary Epstein.
So my comments actually are regarding the difficulty to schedule a meeting. So I really think we should schedule the next meeting before we conclude this meeting. And we should schedule our January. We can change it, but at least if we have something on the schedule, it really got out of hand this last few months.
So so it's my turn, and I agree with all the comments. And Suzanne, I want to again thank you for pulling together all of these very important, critical documents to keep the NCLA moving forward. And that, yes, I think we have all agreed that scheduling our next meetings is highly important. So I recommend that we look for a time in September. It seems to be that Mondays are the most accommodating for everybody. And if you all will take a look at your calendars now, I would appreciate that.
I'm gonna go get mine just a minute.
All right.
We did have sort of a regular, I mean, last year there was a regular Monday, I forget which Monday of the month it was, and a regular time, and I forget,
Mhm,
might have been around 5.
mhm.
So
I think that's what we're moving towards, Sally. So, yes.
Yeah, my suggestion is unless we have another standing committee meeting or a council meeting, just tell us when to show up. That to me seems to be the only one that supersedes other standing meetings.
September is actually really bad for me. Can we look at the beginning of October?
So we don't have to have a quorum, and I think that depending on, I think we can schedule a meeting and we can cancel it if we don't need it, if we don't have important things, Suzanne. But
Unless we bring back up the proposal for the,
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty big, and that's important.
regarding September, 2 of the Mondays are holidays. The first is Labor Day, and the last Monday of the month is Rosh Hashanah. So that would leave the 12th or the 19th as non-holiday Mondays in September.
Yeah, looking up for my other calendar because I remember Rosh Hashanah being around there. So, so we have a holiday on the 5th, and then Rosh Hashanah is that on the 12th or the 19th?
It's the last Monday of the
26th.
month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I was saying, so maybe October 3rd.
All right. And if we need to have a meeting before then we'll find a date. So let's plan on October 3rd at 5 o'clock. And then let's tentatively schedule one for November 7th at 5 o'clock. And then we'll skip December. Because again, remember, we can cancel these.
I agree. It's better to schedule them and cancel them than try to find a day.
Well, November 7th is my birthday, so I'm not coming.
Fine.
Just letting you know.
We can't get everybody, apparently we can't get everybody to
Yeah,
the
so you can
meeting.
schedule them, but I'm just forget.
Right. We're not going to pick January 2nd. That's the first Monday.
No, it should be at the end, near the end, because we want to get the audit. And we don't want the, what is it, Martin Luther King or whatever is in there too.
I think that's on the 16th.
I'm sure Angel will send out these dates because I got October on the calendar and then you've raced ahead of me. So
So let's look at January though. Either the
January 30th.
Or 30th, yeah, 23rd or 30th, which one?
Let's pick the 30th.
Okay,
And we will have Angel confirm these. So I currently have October 3rd, November 7th, and January 30th.
I also have all those dates, all with a 5 p.m. start.
Yes.
Okay, deal. And at the conclusion of this meeting or tomorrow morning, you will receive calendar invites on these dates and times so it can hold on your calendar as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
and just to point out, then we need every 30 days, we need 3 of us for the emergency resolution.
So our current emergency resolution goes through what date, Angel?
We
It's
renewed it on
August.
the 7th, so we would honor before August 7th.
Gee,
Yeah,
they come up so fast.
yep.
well,
And if
pretty
you want
soon
to
we'll
say,
be able to meet, so it shouldn't be, hopefully, just a few more months of this.
if you want to stay on Mondays, August the 1st would work at 5 if we want to stick with that kind of formula.
Let's do that.
I
It only
can-
requires 3 people.
Yeah. Are there 5 of us, or is there a quorum present here now that you, I'm sorry, let me ask this question correctly. Are those that have attended tonight, are you available on August 1st at 5?
Oh,
I am.
am.
Yes.
I've got
Yes.
3 head nods.
Yep. I will also
We
send this out to get on your calendar.
Thank you. All right.
And we'd
Are
need
there
a
any future-
September, we'd
Go
need
ahead.
it, well, I don't, well, maybe not. I mean, okay, so if we have August and then potentially September before our October meeting, but again, who knows how long this will go, but we can deal with that in August.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, all right. Future agenda items.
Continuing to find out, once we find out whether we can spend this money,
Okay.
continuing to talk about the expansion proposal.
All right. Anything else? All right. With that, I call the meeting adjourned at 7:22 p.m. And I want to thank all of you for coming to the meeting and being fully engaged and getting through some interesting and complicated topics.
Yes, thank you
Yes.
too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
I
Bye.
think we're back on schedule, on a roll.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, everybody, thanks for coming.